In today's episode, we will do something a little different. First, you will watch a short animated story in easy English. Then, after the story, I will talk about repetition, why it matters, and how you can use this story to improve your English. Now, let's begin with the story.
A crow was flying over the forest, looking for food. Suddenly, he saw something on the ground. It was a piece of cheese. The crow quickly flew down and picked up the cheese in his beak. He felt very happy. "What a lucky day," he thought. "This cheese looks delicious." He did not want to eat it on the ground because he was afraid other animals might take it. So he flew up into a tall tree and sat on a strong branch. The crow looked at the cheese in his beak. He felt proud. "I am very smart," he thought. "I found this food all by myself." Not far from the tree, a fox was walking slowly. He was very hungry. He had not eaten since the day before. As he walked, he looked around carefully for food. Suddenly, he saw the crow on the branch. Then he noticed the cheese in the crow's beak. "Ah," he thought, "that cheese looks perfect. I really want it." But the fox knew he could not climb the tree or jump high enough. So he started thinking. "I must be clever," he said to himself. "I will use my mind." After a moment, he smiled. He had an idea. The fox walked slowly to the bottom of the tree. He looked up and said in a soft voice,
Good morning, dear crow. What a beautiful bird you are. Your feathers are so black and shiny. You look amazing. I have seen many birds, but none are as beautiful as you. You are truly special.
The crow felt proud. He thought, "Yes, maybe I am very beautiful." The crow looked down but said nothing. He still had the cheese in his beak. The fox continued,
I am sure your voice is also beautiful. People say you have a wonderful voice. Is it true? Please, sing a song for me. I would love to hear your voice.
Now the crow felt excited. He wanted to show how good he was. He forgot about the cheese. He lifted his head and opened his beak to sing.
Oh no! My cheese! Thank you, dear crow. That was a very nice song.
The crow felt embarrassed. He had lost his food because of his pride. The fox looked up and said, "Let me give you some advice. Do not trust people who only praise you. Sometimes they have a plan." The crow listened carefully. The fox added, "Kind words are not always honest words." Then he turned and walked away. The crow stayed on the branch, feeling sad, but he understood his mistake. "I was foolish," he thought. "I believed him too easily." From that day on, the crow became more careful. When someone spoke with too much praise, he stopped and thought, "Is this real, or is this a trick?"
Okay, now that we have watched a story, let's pause for a moment. You may think, okay, I understood the story, so now I can move on. But not so fast. In language learning, understanding something one time is good, but it is not enough. The real learning begins when you return to the same story again. When you listen to it a second time, you notice more words. When you listen to it a third time, you hear the sentences more clearly. And when you repeat some useful phrases from the story, they slowly become part of your English. So today, I want to use this story to talk about one of the most powerful tools in language learning: repetition. Repetition does not mean boring study. Some learners hear this word and think, oh no, not again. They imagine doing the same exercise many times. They imagine reading the same sentence again and again. They imagine language learning as something dry, slow, and tiring. But repetition is not the enemy. In fact, repetition is one of the most important parts of learning a language well. If you want to remember words, repetition matters. If you want to understand English more easily, repetition matters. If you want to speak more naturally and with more confidence, repetition matters. So today, we are going to explore this idea together in a simple way. We will look at repetition through three main questions. First, what do we want to repeat? Second, when do we want to repeat it? And third, how do we repeat it? Now let's move to our first big question. What do we want to repeat? This is important because not everything is equally useful. Some learners repeat random vocabulary. Some memorize long lists of rare words. Some spend time on language they will almost never use. That is not the best approach. In language learning, we want to repeat the things that give us the most value. First, we want to repeat high-frequency words. These are words that appear again and again in everyday English. Words like still, enough, almost, maybe, around, instead, probably, while, although, yet. These words may look small, but they are everywhere. If learners know them well, their English becomes much stronger. Second, we want to repeat useful phrases and chunks. This is extremely important, my friends. Real language is not only one word at a time. People often speak in groups of words, in chunks. For example, I don't think so. That makes sense. The good thing is, I'm looking for, well, it depends. To be honest, you see, these chunks help learners speak more naturally without thinking much. They also help learners understand faster because they stop listening word by word and begin listening in groups. So, when we think about repetition, we should not think only about single words. We should also think about whole expressions. Third, we want to repeat grammar patterns in context. This means we do not only study grammar rules in a grammar book. We also repeat sentences that show how grammar works in real life. For example, I used to live in London. She doesn't want to go. What are you doing tomorrow? I've never tried that before. When learners repeat grammar in real sentences, grammar becomes more alive. It stops being only a rule and starts becoming language. Fourth, we want to repeat pronunciation patterns. This is often forgotten. Learners may repeat vocabulary with their eyes, but not with their ears and mouths. They may read a phrase many times, but never say it clearly. That is why repetition should also include sound. Hearing the same sentence several times helps learners notice pronunciation. Saying the same sentence several times helps learners feel the rhythm of English. Finally, we want to repeat input that we can understand. Okay? This could be a short dialogue, a story, a podcast section, or a simple conversation. If learners understand most of it, they can repeat it and get more from it each time. The first time, they understand the main idea. The second time, they notice key words. The third time, they notice pronunciation. The fourth time, they feel more comfortable and confident. This is why repeating easy, understandable material can be more powerful than always jumping to something difficult. So, if we want repetition to work, we should repeat language that is useful, common, and meaningful. Not random language, not language that is too rare, not language that is too difficult to understand. We want repetition to help real communication. Now, in this part, I'm going to look at the two next important questions. When do we want to repeat language? And how do we want to repeat it? These two questions are very important because repetition is not only about doing something again, it is also about doing it at the right time and in the right way. Let's begin with the question of when. Many learners repeat something only once, very close to the first time they study it. For example, they learn 10 new words, repeat them 5 times in 10 minutes, and then never look at them again. This may feel good in the moment. It may feel like learning. It may feel like progress. But often, a few days later, many of those words are gone. Why? Because the brain needs time and return. It needs a second meeting, a third meeting, and often many more meetings. One short study session is usually not enough. So, when should we repeat language? First, we should repeat it soon after the first time. This is very helpful. If you learn a new phrase today, it is a good idea to meet it again later today, or at least very soon. That second meeting helps protect the memory. It tells the brain, this was not just a small moment. This is something important. Second, we should repeat it after a short gap, after a short time, okay? This means the next day or 2 days later or after a few days. This is powerful because now the brain must work a little harder. It must try to remember, and that effort is very useful. Then comes the third stage. We should repeat language again over a longer period of time. This means 1 week later, 2 weeks later, maybe even a month later. Language grows through return. A word or phrase becomes strong when it comes back again and again over time. This is why good language learning is not only about one lesson, it is about meeting useful language many times across days, weeks, and months. So, how do we want to repeat language? This is very important because repetition should not be dead, empty, or mechanical. Good repetition is active. Good repetition has meaning. Good repetition helps us use language, not just look at it. One very useful way to repeat language is through listening. Listening again to the same story, to the same audio. This can be very powerful. The first time, maybe you understand only the main idea. The second time, you notice some words. The third time, you hear the phrases more clearly. The fourth time, you begin to feel the rhythm and pronunciation. This is why learners should not always listen once and move on. Sometimes, staying with one short piece of audio is much better. So, let's bring everything together. Repetition matters because one meeting with language is usually not enough. We need to see, hear, and use useful language many times before it becomes part of us. We should repeat the right things. We should repeat them at the right times. We should repeat them in smart, meaningful ways. Repeat soon after the first meeting. Repeat again after a short gap. Repeat again over time. Thank you for listening to English Unleashed. I'm Tom, and I hope this episode helped you see repetition in a new way. Bye for now.